Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining the Understanding Initial Eligibility Standards webinar today. My name is Amber Viles, and I'm the Assistant Director of Communications for the NCAA Eligibility Center. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, George Midget and Barrington Huntley. Before we get started, I have just a few quick housekeeping things to note here. First and foremost, yes, this is being recorded. If you registered for this webinar, we will send a recording of the webinar to your email. If you just happen to stumble upon us and didn't get the chance to register, just put your email into the chat. We'll make sure that we get a link sent to it. Also, as noted on the previous slide, you can hear us and hopefully you're able to see us, but we can't hear or see you. So if you do have a question, please use the Q&A function to ask any questions and we will take those at the end. And we're going to get to as many as we can, but if we don't hit them all, our customer service team has so willingly volunteered to respond to everybody after the webinar. So please just use your email in any question that you ask us. That'll ensure that our customer service team is able to answer them in the coming days. So I'm going to run through the agenda here, but first I wanted to thank you for joining us and let you know that we see and appreciate the effort that you and your family are putting in. Actually, right now, if you have a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, any family member sitting next to you, joining you in this webinar, just please give them a thank you. We truly appreciate both of you guys taking the time. We understand that you're juggling studies and practices, and of course, COVID-19, and we know that that can't be easy. Barrington especially knows this. He's a former Division I football athlete, so you'll get to hear him speak a little later, but we understand all that juggling, and that's exactly why we're having this webinar, so that you can get your questions answered about how to fulfill your dream of playing sports in college. So to start us off, I'm going to talk about COVID-19 and our FAQ. I'll hit a little bit on what the Eligibility Center is, and then I'm going to toss things over to George. He's going to discuss registration, and then Barrington's going to come on and discuss alternative standards. So if we have any seniors on the call, pay really close attention when Barrington speaks. There are some alternative standards this year that are going to apply to you. Barrington will finish us out discussing that sports participation and recruiting, and then I'm going to hop on and discuss resources, and we will take your questions live. So by now, we hope you've all had the opportunity to hear the good news and review the COVID-19 response FAQ that was in your email invite to this webinar. But if you haven't, if my producer will click here, this is going to bring up a QR code. So if you have your phone sitting next to you, just swipe your camera open. You're going to hover over this and it'll open the FAQ on your phone. That way you can just kind of review it after this webinar and hopefully help answer any questions that you may have. So this is the third release of our COVID-19 FAQ, and it is critical for any of you that are enrolling in college, let me get this right, in the 2022-23 academic year. So seniors, again, pay really close attention to this document, and Barrington's going to discuss it in more detail. So with that, let's get started. So first, what is the NCAA Eligibility Center? The Eligibility Center is a unit within the NCAA. It's what I like to call the front door of the NCAA. And what I mean by that is that your family, your coaches and your counselors, they're going to be the one to recognize your hard work in the classroom and your passion for your sport. And they're going to help you get to us. And we're going to meet you out front and we're going to evaluate and certify you for Division I and Division II competition. Because if you want to compete at that next level, getting certified by the Eligibility Center is not an option. We are mandatory. So the better our conversation and our collaboration is, the more empowered you're going to be to take advantage of the opportunity of playing sports while getting your college education. A few fast facts here. So the NCAA team makes a big impact on students globally. We service over 1,100 colleges and universities. We help over 500,000 student athletes. And keep in mind that we do this with a team of about 50 people. So we are small, but we sure are mighty. Now I'm going to hand things over to George Midget. He is the Assistant Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnerships, and he's going to discuss the first part of today's agenda.
Thanks, Amber. And welcome and good evening to everyone on today's webinar. You could have been doing anything else, but you've taken the time out to make sure that you're taking care of your future. Again, when we're going through things, we're looking at the next 40 years and not the next 4. So thanks for taking time out to make sure that you're taking care of your future. So Amber also talked about in her Fast Facts that it's over 500,000 student athletes participating in NCAA sports. Well, in order to participate in sports, you first must register. How to register is you're going to go to eligibilitycenter.org. And when you get there, you're going to have 2 different types of accounts that you can choose from. If you look at the page, in the center of the page, there's a register button. Once you click there, you'll have the chance to choose between those type of accounts. And I'll go in a little bit into depth about each one. The first account is what's called a profile page account. This is specifically for those who aren't sure what they want to do yet, what school they might be going to, or specifically that they're going to a Division III school. There's no fee to set up for this account. So, at any time you want to set up, starting in middle school for this account, you can go and create a profile page account. And it gives you the flexibility because at any time you can change over to a certification account if you decide that you want to pursue sports on a D1 or D2 level. Next up, we'll talk about the certification account. In order to compete at a D1 or D2 school, you must be certified by the NCAA Eligibility Center to compete. There is a fee associated with that, and it's $90 for students based in the US or in Canada, and it's $150 for international student athletes. For those who might be wondering if there's a waiver attached to it, if you qualify for the ACT or SAT with the waiver, you should be able to get a waiver for this as well. Once you complete that certification, once you sign up for that account, you're going to come to this page, which is known as your dashboard. You're going to click here for any type of open task. Also, when you sign up, you're going to sign up with the email address, and those things should go to your email as well. There's going to be constant updates for you to make sure that you're on track to be certified. Make sure that you're looking at this. And for those of you that may have attended multiple high schools, make sure that when you are looking at the transcripts on file, that you have one for each school that you've attended. Again, we must have all of that in there so that we can get you certified. Also on that dashboard, you're going to be using you're going to be identified as what's called an NCAA ID. If you look on this graph in the blue, there's a 10-digit number that you're going to be using when you're signing in. When you go to that dashboard, it's going to be in the top right corner, and in order for you to log in with that. You're going to need your NCAA ID anytime you call us with questions. Make sure you keep that in mind and put it in a place that is that you can access very quickly. Okay, an IRL, in short, is a list that schools use to track students that they're looking to recruit in the eligibility center. You have to be on an IRL to be certified by us, and you also must be on an IRL to play sports in college. Also, just keep in mind that that's only one part of the whole process. Again, there's 3 things that you need to be worried about. First, you have to be certified by us. Second, you must apply to the school of your choice. And then third, be accepted by that school before you can compete on campus. Just because you have completed the certification does not mean that you're going to be eligible to participate on campus. Make sure that you take care of all 3 of those things first. And remember, this isn't just on you. Make sure that you're talking to your high school counselors, your coaches, your parents, and the schools that are recruiting you, their compliance office, as you transition. Again, we want to make sure that, we're helping you to prepare for everything that's coming your way. So later on, we're going to go over some questions that you should be thinking about asking when you're going through the recruiting process. And now I'll pass it over to B so he can tell you a little bit more about what a core course is.
Cool. Thanks, George, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you all this evening. Amber kind of talked about what the NCAA Eligibility Center is. George talked about that first step that you need to make sure that you do. You register with the NCAA's Eligibility Center, and then you go forth and you apply for the schools that you want to get. You get admitted. That's going to be the first part. But how do you make sure that you are eligible to get your scholarship, you're eligible to practice, and you're eligible to compete in your first year of enrollment? That's kind of what I'm going to talk about at first. I'll touch on some of the amateurism stuff, the things you need to be thinking about there. And then I'll finish up with some recruiting information that can help you navigate this process. But when we begin with the academic side, the things that you need to be doing from an academic perspective in order to be eligible to get your scholarship, practice, and compete, the first thing we're gonna talk about is a core course. All of the requirements that I will touch on, I will be mentioning the term core course quite a bit. And all that is those big classes that you're going to be taking: English, math, science, social studies, foreign languages. Those are the types of courses that we're going to be looking at on your transcript to certify you as eligible to compete. Speaking of core courses and all of the information that I'm going to give you today, it can seem daunting, it can seem overwhelming, it can seem like a lot of information. But one thing that I can tell you is that if you are just taking 4 core courses all 4 years of high school, you're going to be well on your way toward meeting the initial eligibility requirements that I'm going to talk about here a little bit later. So I like to put this slide at the beginning of when I'm talking about those initial eligibility requirements so that you know, hey, first of all, I know that I'll be in a good spot if I can just follow this 4x4 class schedule that we advise students to do as well. Every school, every district has a list of NCAA approved core courses. So, you might be wondering, okay, I think I'm in Algebra 1, Geometry. Do those count or do they not count? If you ever run into that question, or if you're ever wondering about whether or not the classes that you are taking will count towards initial eligibility, please scan in this QR code. You will be able to search for your school and then look at all of the courses that we will look at and are approved for NCAA initial eligibility. So definitely want to make sure that you check this out. Amber kind of mentioned it at the top. We will be sending you a copy of this presentation, all of these QR codes, any links that you see in this presentation, they'll be live once you get that presentation sent to you. We're also going to be in the comment section. Any resource that I'm talking about right now will be pasted right there as well. So that could help you follow along. So now that we know what core courses are, we'll talk about those alternative standards. Amber talked about these being really applying really to our seniors, those students that are going to be enrolling either mid-year. We're still might be some mid-year students on the call, or those students that are going to be enrolling in college next year. I'm speaking to you when I'm talking about these alternative standards. The alternative standards are right there in that middle circle. That's the COVID-19 automatic waiver. If you're one of those students, you're eligible to get the COVID-19 automatic waiver. You meet the COVID-19 automatic waiver or these alternative standards, you'll be eligible to get your scholarship, practice, and compete in your first year of college enrollment. So starting with Division 1, there's going to be 4 alternative standards. I'll go over each one of them individually. The first alternative standard is going to be the early academic qualifier. And this is for students that have done really well their first 3 years of high school, so well that they have proven that they are ready for the rigors of college academics. How do they prove that? They have completed 14 core courses throughout those first 3 years of high school and earned at least a 3.0 GPA. Students that do that, you'll see over there on the left, they're eligible to get their scholarship, practice, and compete in their first year of enrollment. This is the subject area breakdown for those 14 core courses. So again, I'm talking about core courses, big ones: English, math, science, social studies, foreign languages. Those types of courses are what we're going to be looking at. Next, we have a Division I qualifier. This is the standard that most students, I would say, do get certified under when it comes to those students that are eligible to get their scholarship, practice, and compete. So a lot of students on this call, please pay attention to this one. Most of you probably will fall into this bucket. Again, we're focused on the core courses that you're taking. So 16 core courses throughout your high school career. And Division I has a special rule that we call the 10-7 rule. And all that means is 10 of the 16 courses that you're taking throughout high school have to be completed before you start your 7th semester or your senior year. And 7 of those 10 have to be in English, math, or science. Next, you earn a 2.3 GPA, submit your proof of graduation, and you'll be good. Here's a Division I qualifier subject area breakdown. Notice there's 4 years of English. Back to that 4x4 that I was talking about, making sure that you're taking 4 core courses, all 4 years of high school. That's going to put you on a really good track to meet Division I qualifier. Next, we have Division I academic redshirt. And as you can see, this is a little bit of a lower standard. You still have to get your 16 core, but there's no 10-7 requirement. And the GPA is actually a little bit lower at a 2.0. You still have to show that you graduated high school. But with that lower standard comes certain things that you will not be able to do in your first year of college enrollment. You'll still be eligible for your scholarship. That's a good thing. And you'll still be eligible to practice in your first term. That's also a good thing. But you will have to earn the right to practice in your second term by passing 9 semester hours or 8 quarter hours. And competition is completely off the table if you're certified as an academic redshirt. And I can tell you, just from my time working in Division I compliance offices, anytime there was a student that was trending more toward this academic redshirt as opposed to a qualifier, it could negatively impact how that student would get recruited. Coaches want someone that can come in right away, contribute to the team, contribute to the culture. So doing all you can to make sure that you're going towards qualifier is only going to help you have as many options that are available to you. And next, we have Division I non-qualifier. I have to bring it up. I know no student on this call is going to end up in this bucket, but I just want to let you know that if you don't meet any of the standards that I just went over, so if you're not an early academic qualifier, if you're not a qualifier, if you're not an academic redshirt, unfortunately, you will not be eligible to get your scholarship. You won't be eligible to practice, and you won't be eligible to compete. However, if you do end up in this situation and you have a school that is recruiting you, please work with that school. They can work with us. Maybe there's a reason why you didn't meet the requirements, and we can work together with that school. So that's the advice that I would give if you do end up in this unfortunate position. But like I said, I know nobody on this call is going to be here. And you might have noticed I didn't mention any test scores when I was talking about these alternative standards. That is something that was eliminated as an initial eligibility requirement due to everything that we've seen go on with this pandemic. There was so much uncertainty and continues really to be so much uncertainty around the availability of testing that we thought it was necessary to remove that requirement. However, I want to let you know there are colleges. I do a lot of my work in Florida, and I know the Florida university system was still requiring students to take the test or to have a standardized test score on file. You might also be applying to a school that's giving you a partial athletic scholarship, and then you're going to apply to an academic scholarship to make up that cost of attendance. Those scholarship programs, those academic or merit-based scholarships that you're applying for, they might require the test score too. So while it's not a requirement for us, why it's something that that we're not going to require, making sure I've been advising students, just go ahead and take it if you have the opportunity, because at this point, it can only help you. It can't hurt you. Division I also has some other special rules. I talked about the 10-7 being a special rule, and you can see it illustrated here. You see the importance of the 7th semester. So by the time you start that senior year, you have to have those 10 of the 16 completed, and 7 of those 10 have to be in English, math, or science. In Division I, you also have an 8-semester limitation. So from the time you start high school to the time you graduate, that's when those 16 courses have to be completed. There's also some flexibility that allows you to use one additional course after you graduated toward that 16. But due to everything that's gone on with the pandemic, you'll see on the next slide that we have some flexibility there. So like I said, you have 8 semesters, and then you can do what's called a +1 after that 8th semester to, go toward that 16. The flexibility that has been added to this rule is going to allow you from the time you start your senior year to the time you enroll in college, you can use up to 6 core courses. So how would this look? You maybe you get to your senior year and you only complete 2 core courses. So that's gonna, you already met your 10-7, so you get 2 more. That's gonna put you at 12. You could use that summer to get 4 more before you enroll. That is a big piece of flexibility. Remember, it was a +1 before. Now it could be up to a +6. So that's a huge bit of flexibility that's out there. Obviously, navigating these pandemic times is everything seems, it's different day to day, month to month. So we wanted to make sure that you weren't missing out on an opportunity for something that was totally outside of your control. Now I'll move on to the Division II alternative standards. As opposed to Division I, there's going to be 3 possible certification outcomes, and I'll go over them each individually as well. So first, we have Division II early academic qualifier. Again, these are students that did really well in their freshman, sophomore, and junior years of high school. They got those 14 core courses. They earned at least a 2.5. They're good to go. They're eligible to get their scholarship. They're eligible to practice, eligible to compete in their first year of college. Here's that subject area breakdown. You add all of those years up, that gets to the 14 that we're looking for. Next, we have a Division II qualifier. It's a little simpler than Division I. Division II qualifier, 16 core. You earn at least a 2.2 GPA. You get your proof of graduation in. You're eligible to get your scholarship. You can practice. You can compete in your first year of college enrollment. And here's that subject area breakdown. So again, just emphasizing, we're looking at those core courses, things like PE, things like music. Those I think are great for making you a whole person. You're trying to develop as a young person in this world. But the classes that we're going to be looking at are going to be these ones that you see listed right here. Next, we have a Division II partial qualifier. And a Division II partial qualifier is kind of a new rule that was actually put in place starting in August of 2021. And what this states and what it means is if you don't meet early academic qualifier in Division II or qualifier in Division II, then you're certified as a partial qualifier. And it doesn't matter how much you miss those 2 other standards by. If you don't meet them, then you're going to be certified as a partial qualifier. So again, similar, it's a lower standard. You could graduate with 12 core courses and a 2.1 GPA, and you would be certified as a partial qualifier. But you would not be eligible to compete in your first year of enrollment. So just making sure that you know that. Division II standardized tests, same as Division I. There's going to be no requirement at the Division II level either for the test score, but you see there mentioned test score task force. I'm speaking to seniors right now that the test score is not a requirement, but whether or not the elimination of that test score is going to be given or is going to be permanent for classes that are the freshmen, sophomore, juniors, whether or not the elimination of test score is going to be for you all as well is something that we're looking at. So we should know more about it this spring, and as soon as we know something about it, we'll make sure that you know as well. So for initial eligibility for all other classes as it stands right now, just go ahead and scan in these 2 QR codes. It will take you to a couple resources that we have that will help you and your families with any questions that you might have there. Now, Division three. Division three is a little bit different than Division one and Division two. George kind of touched on it a little bit when he talked about the profile page. For Division three student athletes, we actually do not certify them at the NCAA Eligibility Center. It's up to the universities themselves to determine whether or not you get admitted, to determine how much financial aid you get, how much you practice, and how much you can compete. But we still do encourage you to sign up for the free profile page account because that's going to help you make a more informed decision as you're moving through the process. Now we have some other flexibility. Again, this is flexibility for like virtual school. A lot, during the pandemic, a lot of people have moved virtual. You've probably done it all, hybrid, virtual, in person over the last couple of years, but there is some flexibility for virtual school. And all of this means is the school that you're at, more than if that school is approved by the NCAA, then your approved school can use any online program that they want, even if that online program hasn't been approved by the NCAA. So again, that's some flexibility that we wanted to provide. And it's flexibility that will carry on with you, as you'll see on the next slide. It's flexibility that will carry on with you throughout your high school career. So if you're a freshman today and you're taking these online courses that your school wanted to have you take, and they're not approved by the NCAA at that time, when you get to be a senior, we'll look at your transcript. We'll see, okay, this happened during the pandemic. You'll get credit for those courses. I do want to make sure that I emphasize the difference between online and virtual. I know there might be a lot of parents on this call that have done quite a bit of teaching of their own as students move virtually, but there is a separation. If you are an actual homeschool, that's a completely different process versus helping out obviously at home in the virtual environment. If you are actually doing homeschool, we have a whole homeschool toolkit that is available to help you navigate that process as well. So that's the academic portion. Now we're going to talk a little bit about amateurism and what that looks like. So sports participation, amateurism, as part of your certification, as part of you registering, you're going to have to answer a few questions about what sport you want to play, what teams you've been on. You're also going to have to request final amateurism. It's part of the process, but as you can see there, more than 94% of all student athletes that come through this process have no issues whatsoever. And of that 6% is really confined to sports of men's basketball or international students. So have to tell you about it. It's part of the process, but it shouldn't really cause too many snags for you. Now we have name, image, likeness. This is something that is a hot topic right now going on in college sports, going on even in high school sports as well. And there are some rules that continue to apply at the NCAA level. You can't receive money to play the sport that you're going to be playing. You also can't, promise to go to a school if you're paid a certain amount. Those are rules that still do apply. But how you use your name, image, and likeness to make money, that is something that is going to be decided at the local level. So my advice to you here today would be to work with your high school athletic associations or the schools that are recruiting you to understand how you can use your name, image, and likeness to, for profit. We have some resources available as well. You see there, ncaa.org/NIL. Our social media team also does a great job of updating the public on these types of issues. So give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook as well. We also have this number here, 877-262-1492. That is our line that is dedicated for you and your families. You can call in there. You can ask any question that you have, and we'll do our best to help you out. So I talked academics, talked a little bit about amateurism. Now we'll talk about recruiting generally and what that process looks like. I'll give you a brief overview of some things that you need to be aware of. First thing to be aware of is the recruiting calendars. Every sport has a different recruiting calendar. As you see here, this screenshot was taken right from the guide for the college-bound student athlete. It shows the Division I football recruiting calendar. You might be on here and play tennis. You might be on here and play basketball. If that's the case, make sure that you check out that link that we have at the bottom. It will take you to a site that to where you can view your recruiting calendar and what that looks like. Speaking of those recruiting calendars, a couple of key terms that I want to make sure that you all know. You might hear coaches say this, you might hear your friends say this, you might hear your mom say this. I just want to make sure that you understand kind of some of those big recruiting periods and what it looks like. These periods here really govern your ability to have face-to-face contact with coaches. So at a certain point, you'll be able to have, once you reach a certain age in most sports, you'll be able to have telephone calls, you'll be able to have DMs, all kinds of social media messages with the coaches. But the face-to-face contact is really decided by what period or what recruiting period you're in. We have contact period, which means that face-to-face contact can happen on a college's campus or off a college's campus. So it could happen on campus or in your living room. Dead period is kind of a recruiting shutdown. So a student, you would not be able to have recruiting contact, or you would not be able to have face-to-face contact on campus, and that coach would not be able to come to your living room and have a meeting with you and your family. The quiet period is kind of in between. So it still allows you and your family to come onto campus to meet with the coaches, but it would not allow the coaches to come to your living room and meet with you. And, when you talk about those meetings, they're really split into two different types of things. You have an unofficial visit, which you see on the screen right now. That's basically a visit that is going to be that you are going to pay for. So you are going to pay to come on the campus, meet with the coaches, and there's really no limit to the amount of unofficial visits that you can take. You're spending your money, though. I want to make sure that you understand that for an unofficial visit. On the next slide, you'll see official visits. These are the visits where the school will pay for you to come on the campus and meet with the coaching staff. Official visits are, they're really a part of the recruiting process once it gets serious. If you are a student that is being recruited and, they're probably going to offer you, or maybe they already have offered you, that's when the official visits are going to happen. George mentioned it as well. You have to have a certification account before you can take one of these. And I think it's a really good process for you that will better help you understand what the university has to offer. And you'll know that the university really is looking at you pretty strongly if they're trying to bring you on an official visit. So when they bring you on that official visit, maybe I know when I was working at Georgia Tech, there could be times where you have, hey, we're going to bring this kid on an official visit. We want to offer them a scholarship. We give them their national letter of intent, their NLI, not to be confused with NIL. I know that's a lot, right? But their NLI, once you sign this ends the recruiting process. So this is going to lock you in. This is an important document that you need to make sure you understand, because you can't sign an NLI on Monday and then, decide, all right, actually, I don't want to go to that school. I want to sign another NLI on Friday. That's not how it works. This is the end of the process and really should be the goal of every single person on this call to get that scholarship. Because as we see on the next slide, only about 2% of high school athletes actually get a scholarship. So we saw 500 plus college athletes right now at the NCAA. There are millions of high school student athletes. So when I see a slide like this, it really resonates with me, and it really I think emphasizes the importance of your academic achievement. That's going to create the athletic opportunity for you. You want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward in the classroom, because that's going to put you ahead of the competition. You're competing for a lot here, and it's a really, really great experience to be a college athlete. You want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. So as you're going through the process, there's going to be questions that you want to make sure that you're asking. And these questions really fall into three buckets. You want to make sure that you're asking questions about the cultural fit. You want to say, hey, could I spend the next 4 or 5 years at this school that I'm going to be going to? You want to make sure that it's the right academic fit. Is the degree that I'm going to get from this university going to benefit me, as George mentioned, 40 years into the future? And then you want to make sure it's the right financial fit. Can I afford this school? Does the financial aid package that I'm receiving work for me and my family? So we will send a copy of this presentation, as I mentioned. You'll have all of these questions. Take them with you on an official visit. Take them with you on an unofficial visit. This will help you understand everything that those universities have to offer you, and it'll help you make a better decision. We also have some proactive actions that you need to make sure that you're aware of too. So you want to make sure that you know your NCAA ID number. George touched on that. You go to your dashboard, it's on the top right-hand corner. It's that blue number. Make sure you know that. Make sure you have that in a place that's easy to access so that when coaches ask you, you can pull it right up. Apply to schools that are the right fit for you and be accepted. That's also a part of it. You're going to have to request that final amateurism. You'll go into your NCAA or on your NCAA dashboard when you sign in, starting in April 1st for students that are going to be enrolling in the fall, and October 1st for students that are going to be enrolling in the winter or the spring. There will be an icon there right in the middle of the screen. We try to make it as obvious as possible. You go on, you click request final amateurism. Make sure you're working with your counselor. George talked about this being a shared responsibility. Make sure you're working with your counselors, and it's important that you work with them with this step, making sure that they submit your final transcript at the end of your high school. That's going to be your proof of graduation. That's a requirement for you to get certified by us. And then lastly, if you're a student that has any education impacting disabilities, there are accommodations available to you. We have resources that can help you navigate that process. Speaking of resources, I'll turn it over to Amber now. We have a ton of them. She'll tell you what you need to know.
Thank you, Barrington. And like Barrington said, I'm going to discuss resources. So we definitely have a ton. I'm a little biased because I'm on the comms team, so I work on these resources, but I must say they are pretty good. First and foremost, I'll just hit on a couple here. First and foremost is that COVID-19 FAQ. We're going to have a QR code later in the presentation. Again, seniors, please pay attention to that FAQ. I think Barrington did a really good job about going through it. Next, our most comprehensive resource is the guide for the college-bound student athlete. So even our producer has a hyperlink hover over there, so you can even see the real link. Yeah, perfect. The QR is also up. So if you have your phone, again, scan that QR code, pull up the guide for the college-bound student athlete. This resource has everything. Whenever I am answering questions on our social media channels that we get, typically, I'm pulling my answers from the guide to the college-bound student athlete. So if you have a question, odds are your answer is going to be here. And then lastly, I did want to hit on the initial eligibility flyer. So this is just a quick one sheet. It's just going to give you a general overview. So the way I like to say this is I have a niece that's in 8th grade. She's looking to play college softball. So Aubrey, I know you're on this call right now. The initial eligibility flyer is a perfect resource for someone like Aubrey, someone like my niece. So they can just kind of grab it, put it in their backpack and go, and then go over it with their family members when they get home. It's just a quick overview, and then the guide for the college-bound student athlete is going to be a deeper dive into that. So we're now going to take a few questions. Again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function to submit those directly to us. And with those questions, if you include your email in the question that you ask, our customer service team will be able to respond to you in the coming days if we can't answer your question here live today. So with that being said, gentlemen, take a deep breath. I'm going to come to you with some questions. I wish I would have got the memo today about the blue collared shirt. I feel like you guys are twins. I'm missing out. But George, we are going to come to you first and give Barrington quite a little break here since he hit a lot of slides. So George, first, could you review the registration fees for a certification account?
Yeah, I definitely can. So when you sign up for a certification account for that particular part, it's $90 for domestic students. That's students that are based in the US and in Canada. It's also $150 for students that are based internationally. With that being said, there is a fee waiver that we can use for certification purposes. So students, if you have qualified for a waiver for the ACT or the SAT, you would qualify for a waiver for the certification account. So please keep that in mind.
Thank you, George. And we're going to come back to you. This question is regarding IRLs. So this person's question was, how do I get on a school's IRL?
Okay, that's a great question. The IRL is that list that college coaches have that are recruiting student athletes. And the best thing to do is ask to be on that list. When those coaches are recruiting you, take the time and ask, hey, coach, am I on this list? Because you have to be on this list. So for us to go through with that process, in order for you to go on an official visit, to sign an NLI, that is something that you need to be on. So make sure you're asking. I mean, if they're recruiting you, they should be putting you on that list.
Thank you, George. And I'm going to stick with you again. This question I get a lot on social media. I know I talked about my niece. She asked me this question as well. When do I need to get a certification account?
Well, I think the earlier the better. We encourage you to sign up as early as middle school. And the beautiful thing about just going to, sign up for an account with at eligibilitycenter.org, even if you start off with that profile page, at any time you can convert over to that certification account. So again, if you want to start early, that you're going to play at a D1 or D2 level, sign up and pay the $90 or that $150 to make it a certification account.
Thank you, George. And I think that's really important because let's say that you signed up for a profile page or a certification account with us. If you're going to multiple schools, it's a wonderful way to get everything, to get all of your transcripts from every school that you attended in one place throughout all of your 4 years. So that is a one-time fee. It's not 4 times. It's not each year, one time. Next question, George, I'm going to stay with you for about 2 more and then I'll hit over on to Barrington. So this question is, you mentioned my NCAA ID. Where do I find that?
So when you sign up for that account at eligibilitycenter.org, once you sign up and go into the account, you should see that blue ID. It's a 10-digit number. It's going to be in the top right-hand corner on your dashboard. Make sure when you are going on the dashboard that you're writing all this stuff down. Write down your NCAA ID. Write down your password. Also, write down the email address that you sign in for. You would not be surprised how many people sign up for the account, or parents, if you're signing up for the account, that you forget that you signed up with that email. And so we don't want you to have any issues in getting into that dashboard. So make sure you're writing all that stuff down.
Thank you, George. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and switch to Barrington early. So Barrington, I think this is a really good question for you since you talked about statuses. When do my high school grades start to count towards my NCAA Eligibility Center certification?
Yeah, Amber, this is a good question. They generally 9th grade, that's when they're going to start. And Division I, you have those 8 semesters to complete those 16 core. One thing I will say though is if you do take, let's say you take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, that potentially could count. Making sure that it's on your high school transcript is a way that you can get credit for that as well. So general rule, 9th grade, but if you're taking some high school classes in 8th grade, make sure it's on your transcript.
And Barrington, you said that magic word, transcript. Our next question here is, can I send you my transcript rather than my school doing it?
Yep. So Our preference would be for the transcript to come from the school. It's really easy for your counselor to go in there into your account, just add the transcript. But, obviously during the pandemic, that might not be an option right now. You can actually send us your transcript, but there's two things you need to do. You need to make sure it's sent to ec-processing@ncaa.org. And secondly, it has to be from the email address that you have on file with us. So when you heard George talk about making sure you're writing down your email address that you have registered with, that's a reason why you might need to do that.
Thank you, Barrington. And while it's up on the screen here, the guide for the college-bound student athlete, of course, QR codes, we love them. Go ahead and scan this if you need that comprehensive resource that I was discussing. We'll continue with our questions here. We've got about 14 minutes left. So Barrington, I'm going to come back to you. This question says, I'm taking an English course at my local community college. Will it be used in my certification?
Yep. So English is one of those big ones, right? It's one of those core courses that we're talking about. So generally, I think you're in a good spot if you're taking English at a local community college. It does need to be at the 100 level or above, so it can't be like a remedial English class. And then it also needs to make sure, you also need to make sure that it's on your high school transcript, because that's what we're going to be looking at to certify you.
Thank you, Barrington. And this question is COVID related, so I'm going to come right back to you again, and then I'll give you a break. This question is, how do college athletes taking an extra year of eligibility, how does that impact the number of spots on the roster for the incoming college freshmen?
Yep. So that kind of touches on the recruiting side of things as well that I was talking about earlier. And there's a lot of different rules about what next year could look like for roster spots and the like. So my advice would be work with the college coach that's recruiting you so that you can get a better picture of the opportunities that might be available to you.
Thank you, Barrington, and I'll give you a little bit of break. So George, I'm going to come to you. This question is, let me see here. Do I have to be certified to go on an official visit?
But it's not just for having a certification account. It must be paid for as well. So yeah, you can sign up for the profile page account, but we really make sure that you needed to convert it over to that certification account and then pay for it either out of your own pocket or having that fee waiver to take care of that.
And I think that's a important distinction there, being certified and having a certification account to go on that official visit. Certification account and have it paid for. That's going to be what you need on that one. George, I'm going to come back to you. This question says, can you explain what a dead period is?
I think Barrington did a really good job of breaking things down. I like to talk in analogies, so I'll be very brief about this. If you look at a stoplight, it's three different colors. Dead is red. That means you stop. There's not going to be any face-to-face contact. A school can still reach out to you via email or mail, or they can call you on the phone, but that means you cannot go on campus or they can't come see you compete or come to practice. It's completely off limits. Dead red. Stop.
Thank you, George. And I'll come to you for this next question as well. This question says, I'm going to play Division III. Do I need to register with the Eligibility Center?
Well, that's a great question as well. I mean, you're not required to sign up for an account.
Thank you, George. And Barrington, I'm going to come to you next. While we've got that COVID-19 QR up, I saw it was up there a little bit ago. Can you talk about the classes and how those COVID alternative standards will affect different classes, so juniors, seniors, sophomores?
Yep. So right now, seniors, so if you're going to be enrolling in college next year, the test score is not a requirement. If you're in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade, the test score is a requirement. But as I mentioned earlier, we have something called a test score task force, fancy name for, we're just looking at whether or not the test score needs to continue to be a requirement. We should know if that's going to be permanent. We should know sometime this spring. And as we know more information, maybe we're sitting on a webinar a couple months from now talking about the elimination of a test score requirement. Who knows?
Thank you, Barrington. And this next question I can take, we got it a few times throughout the presentation. It says, will this presentation be recorded and provided afterwards? Can you send me the link? Of course, yes. If you registered for this webinar, you're automatically on our list and you will get a recording of the presentation as well as a PDF. So that way you're able to go through and click all the links that we have in this. If you got the link, let's say from a friend or from a parent, a family member, just feel free to put your email in the chat. It's private. We'll keep it private, and I'll be sure to get you the link to the recording and the PDF presentation. So going through our questions here, we've got about 10 more minutes, and I've got a couple more slides. Barrington, I'm going to come to you. This question set is should I still submit my SAT, ACT test scores to the Eligibility Center?
Yep. If you have them, just go ahead and submit them. You can use the code 9999. That's 4 9s. That is going to be the code that will have it sent directly from the College Board, which does the SAT or the ACT straight to straight to us at the Eligibility Center. So using that code 9999 will allow you to do that.
Thank you, Barrington. And I'm going to go ahead and take the last question here. So our social media is up on the screen. Oh, it was. Feel free to follow us. There it is. Feel free to follow us on social media, please. I got a question asking what our Twitter was. So this will take you straight to our Twitter handle. I saw a few PSAs. Follow us on Twitter. This is a wonderful way to just have a reminder. I'm constantly sending reminders on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram that are pretty timely. We, for example, posted this webinar on there. So it's a great way to just, passively stay up on things and make sure that you're getting things done when you need to so that you can pursue your dreams of playing sports in college. So with that, we can go ahead to the next slide. We do see that we have quite a few questions left. And we're going to make sure to log those questions, and our customer service team, if you provided your email, our customer service team will be responding to your question in the coming days. Again, thank you for joining us today so much. As we mentioned before, the recording to the presentation and the PowerPoint will be sent via email to everybody who registered and everybody who's sharing their email in the chat right now. So again, if you have any teammates or parents, family members, counselors that you think would benefit from hearing this webinar, feel free, share the link, share the PowerPoint, share the knowledge, if you will. We'll be posting it on our social media channels as well tomorrow. Again, my name is Amber Viles, and on behalf of myself and my colleagues, George Midget and Barrington Huntley, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to support you and your family as things change and questions arise. Thank you. Be safe.